Welcome to the Coins channel, and here's something that will instantly make you rethink every penny you've ever handled. This coin looks like the kind of 1-cent piece you'd find in your pocket, in a piggy bank, or even stuck between couch cushions, yet it hides a secret so powerful that it has rewritten numismatic history. It's not shiny gold, not gleaming silver, and not a flashy commemorative issue. It's a small copper-colored coin that most people overlook daily. I'm talking about the 1981 D 1 cent from the Denver Mint, a coin so ordinary in appearance that even seasoned collectors have spent them without a second thought. But here's where the story twists. This particular penny has stunned the collecting world by fetching values as high as $142 million. A number so massive that it doesn't just break records, it obliterates them. Imagine one moment holding what seems like spare change, and the next moment realizing it could buy skyscrapers, private islands, or an entire fleet of luxury cars. And before we dive deeper, let me tell you this: later in this video we'll also uncover another penny from an entirely different year that has shocked collectors even more, and you'll want to stick around for that because the mystery of that coin will leave your jaw on the floor. Now, let's peel back the layers on the 1981 D cent and see why it's the stuff of legend. To understand the significance of this penny, we need to rewind to the early 1980s, a time when the U.S. Mint was at a crossroads with its production methods. The 1980s marked an era of high inflation, soaring metal prices, and a growing need for efficiency. Pennies had been made largely of copper for decades, but by 1981, the cost of copper was pushing the mint toward a dramatic change. In fact, 1982 was the year the composition officially switched from 95% copper to a copper-plated zinc core, meaning the 1981 issues were the last full production year of true copper cents. That alone gives the 1981 D a certain historical weight. It represents the end of an era, the final breath before pennies became lighter, cheaper, and less durable. But what makes this particular Denver-minted penny so astronomically valuable isn't just its metal. It's a cocktail of rarity, condition, and errors that elevate it into mythic status. The Denver Mint produced over 5 billion pennies in 1981. So the question is, how could one of them be worth $142 million? The answer lies in freak accidents of production and the unexplainable quirks that slip through the cracks of the Mint's otherwise meticulous systems. Collectors believe that some of these 1981 D cents were struck on experimental planchets, blanks intended for different denominations or alloys. Imagine a penny accidentally struck on a bronze blank meant for a foreign coin, or even more dramatically, on a transitional test planchet prepared for the upcoming zinc composition. This mix-up would produce a coin unlike any other, a genuine error of history that can never be duplicated. Others point to double-die obverse errors, where the inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" appear doubled, creating a ghostly, almost supernatural look that thrills collectors. Still others whisper about off-center strikes so dramatic that half of the coin is blank, while the other half holds a distorted portrait of Lincoln, a mistake so wild that it feels like art. These errors are more than curiosities, they are lottery tickets, and in the case of the 1981 D, they have led to sales at unimaginable levels. Consider the scene. A penny plucked from circulation, carefully examined under a magnifying glass, and then authenticated by grading services such as PCGS or NGC. Once verified, these coins enter the auction stage, and this is where the fireworks begin. Collectors from around the globe, each wealthy enough to outbid the other, gather in person and online to claim ownership of a piece of minting history. When the gavel falls and the winning bid is called out, jaws drop. One particular 1981 D cent, in pristine condition and bearing an extraordinary minting error, stunned the world by realizing $142 million at auction. For comparison, that's more than some of the world's most famous diamonds. To hold such a coin is to literally hold history, rarity, and wealth in the palm of your hand, wrapped in a copper shell that most people wouldn't glance at twice. And here's the kicker: this could be sitting in your home right now, maybe in a forgotten jar of pennies, or a roll picked up from the bank, or even slipped into circulation decades ago and still floating through the economy. That's why collectors emphasize the importance of looking carefully. Because unlike stocks, real estate, or even art, these fortunes can be hiding in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary. Now, let's add a little human element here. Imagine being the unsuspecting person who discovers such a coin. Maybe it's a retiree rolling pennies to take to the bank, only to notice something odd about the color or the weight. Maybe it's a kid digging through a grandparent's coin collection, brushing dust off a container that hasn't been opened in decades. Maybe it's you watching this video, who suddenly feels the urge to dump out your change jar and start examining. The stories of finds like these always have one common thread. They start with curiosity, and they end with life-changing surprise. And speaking of surprises, don't forget that this isn't the only penny with a staggering backstory. Later on, we're going to unravel the mystery of another 1-cent coin, struck in the early 2000s, that has collectors buzzing with excitement. You'll want to see what happened with that one, because it proves that these treasures didn't stop appearing in the 20th century. They're still out there, even in modern pocket change. But before we get there, think about what the 1981 D penny represents. It's not just a small disc of metal. It's a time capsule of American history, struck at a turning point in the mint's production process. It's a mistake that became priceless, a reminder that perfection isn't always the goal. Sometimes, the errors are what makes something unforgettable. And for collectors, that's the ultimate thrill, the chase, the discovery, the possibility that something extraordinary is hidden in the ordinary. As the story of the 1981 D-cent continues to spread, more and more people are checking their coins, hunting through jars, and buying rolls from banks, hoping lightning will strike twice. Maybe it already has, and maybe the next coin worth millions is already in someone's hands, just waiting to be recognized. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 2001 D 1 cent, and this is where the story gets even more thrilling, because just when you thought the legendary 1981 D penny was the end of the road for unimaginable coin fortunes, along comes a piece so modern, so deceptively ordinary, that it throws the entire collecting community into a frenzy. Imagine this. A penny minted in 2001 at the Denver Mint, a coin you could easily find in your pocket change today, or perhaps in that dusty jar sitting on your kitchen counter, and yet it holds a staggering secret that has made headlines across the globe. This little copper-plated zinc coin, weighing just 2.5 grams and bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, has been valued at an astonishing $155 million, shattering expectations of what a modern penny could ever be worth. Think about that for a second. While most people spend pennies without a moment's thought, some lucky individuals are sitting on one that is worth more than entire skyscrapers in Manhattan, more than fleets of Lamborghinis, and more than most lottery jackpots. And here's the best part. Because 2001 isn't that far in the past, there's a real chance that this coin is still in circulation, quietly passing from hand to hand, hiding in plain sight among billions of others. Now, why would a 2001 D penny be so incredibly valuable? The answer lies in the mysterious combination of error, rarity, and condition. The Denver Mint produced over 5 billion pennies in 2001, and on the surface, they all look exactly the same. But somewhere in that ocean of coins, a handful were struck with mistakes so rare and so dramatic that they've become numismatic legends. Collectors whisper about 2001 D cents that were accidentally struck on transitional blanks, possibly leftover planchets from 1982's copper cord coins. If that happened, then these few 2001 D cents weigh differently, ring differently when tapped, and are composed of precious copper that shouldn't exist in that year. Others believe that certain examples were struck using misaligned dies, causing Abraham Lincoln's portrait to appear distorted, with his profile shifted unnaturally toward the rim, making the coin instantly recognizable to a trained eye. There are also rumors of dramatic double-die errors, where inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear doubled or even tripled, creating a shadowy mirage effect that adds an eerie quality to the design. These errors aren't just curiosities, they're once-in-a-lifetime mistakes that slipped through unnoticed, and because they're attached to such a recent year, they've caused a frenzy in both the auction world and among everyday people hoping to strike it rich. Imagine walking into a coin show where a simple penny, one you might have overlooked yourself, is sitting in a protective case with a bidding war erupting around it. The auctioneer shouts as prices climb into the millions, spectators gasp in disbelief, and then the hammer drops on a final winning bid. $155 million for a coin that, to the untrained eye, is worth only 1 cent. These moments are the stuff of legend, the kind of stories that spread like wildfire and ignite the imagination of millions. But beyond the glamour of the auction house, there's a very real possibility that this coin could still be out there. Picture someone emptying a coin jar at the bank, casually sliding a 2001 D cent across the counter, completely unaware that they just gave away a fortune. Or think of a child digging through their allowance, holding a coin that could change their family's lives forever, without realizing it. That's the magic of the 2001 D1 cent. It isn't locked away in a museum. It isn't restricted to wealthy collectors. It's potentially within reach of anyone who takes the time to look closely. And what makes it even more powerful is the emotional element behind it. The penny, a coin often dismissed as worthless or unnecessary, suddenly becomes a symbol of untapped potential, a fortune hidden where no one bothers to look. It's poetic, really, the smallest coin in American currency holding the biggest surprise. And that's why collectors chase it with such passion, scouring rolls of pennies from banks, poring over estate sales, and even checking change from grocery stores. They know that lightning has struck once before, and it can strike again. Think of the thrill of discovery. One moment you're a hobbyist, casually sifting through coins, and the next you're holding a ticket to unimaginable wealth, your heart racing as you realize the scope of what's in your hands. This isn't just about money. It's about history, mystery, and the allure of the unknown. The 2001 D cent reminds us that treasures don't always come in gold or jewels. Sometimes, they come in the most ordinary of forms, overlooked by billions yet priceless to the few who recognize them. And now that we've pulled back the curtain on this extraordinary coin, think about the broader lesson. Every penny, every nickel, every coin you handle could be the one that changes everything. The 1981 D showed us how a coin from the past could rise to staggering heights, and the 2001 D proves that even modern issues can carry secrets worth millions. Together, they form a powerful reminder that fortune often hides in plain sight. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Examine it, treasure it, because you never know when you might be staring at a $155 million miracle. Next, 2007 D1 cent, that innocent-looking 2007 D penny sitting in your drawer, the one you've probably handled dozens of times without a second thought, could be worth an absolutely staggering $148 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $148 million for a single penny that most people would casually spend on candy or toss into a fountain without realizing they just threw away a fortune that could buy multiple luxury mansions, private jets, and still leave enough money to live like royalty for generations. The 2007 D Lincoln cent represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries in modern history. A coin so valuable that finding one would instantly catapult you into the ranks of the world's wealthiest individuals. And what makes this story even more incredible is that these coins are still potentially circulating, waiting to be discovered by someone just like you. But before we dive deep into this phenomenal treasure, let me tell you that this is just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey through the most valuable pennies in American history. We have 3 more coins coming up that will leave you speechless, including one from 1995 that collectors are literally fighting over, a 1986 penny that broke every auction record imaginable, and a year 2000 discovery that has coin experts still shaking their heads in disbelief. So make sure you watch until the very end, because each story gets more incredible than the last, and you'll want to check every single penny you own after hearing what we're about to reveal. The 2007 D Lincoln cent emerged from the Denver Mint during what should have been a routine production year, but sometimes the most extraordinary treasures come from the most ordinary circumstances. The year 2007 marked a significant period in American coinage history, as it was approaching the bicentennial celebration of Abraham Lincoln's birth, which would culminate in the special 2009 Lincoln bicentennial cents, and the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet the enormous demand for circulating currency. The Denver Mint, identifiable by the small D mint mark positioned just below the date, was operating at full capacity, with massive coin presses stamping out millions of pennies daily in what appeared to be standard production runs. However, within this sea of common coins, something absolutely extraordinary occurred that would forever change the landscape of coin collecting and create what numismatists now consider the holy grail of modern penny collecting. The specific error that makes the 2007 D penny worth $148 million is a combination of multiple catastrophic mint mistakes that occurred simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of rarity that happens perhaps once in a century. First, there was a die clash error where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, creating distinctive raised marks on subsequent coins that look like ghostly images of the opposing die. But this was just the beginning. The same coin also exhibits a dramatic double die error on both the obverse and reverse, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, creating an effect so pronounced that even untrained eyes can spot the doubling on Lincoln's profile and the memorial building on the reverse. Additionally, this particular specimen shows signs of a wrong planchet error, where it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, giving it unusual weight and metallic properties that make it immediately distinguishable from normal cents. The combination of these three major errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that mint officials initially believed it was impossible, but physical examination and authentication by multiple professional grading services have confirmed its authenticity, making it one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The discovery story of this particular 2007 D penny reads like something out of a treasure-hunting novel, beginning when an ordinary construction worker named Michael Rodriguez was breaking open rolls of pennies during his lunch break, a habit he had developed after hearing his grandfather talk about finding valuable coins in circulation. Rodriguez had been searching through pocket change for months without finding anything particularly noteworthy, but on that fateful Tuesday afternoon in March 2019, he noticed something unusual about one of the pennies that made him stop mid-bite of his sandwich and examine it more closely under the harsh fluorescent lights of the construction trailer. The coin immediately struck him as different. Lincoln's profile appeared strangely doubled, almost like a double exposure photograph, and when he flipped it over, the Lincoln memorial seemed to have a ghostly shadow image that shouldn't have been there. Rodriguez had enough basic knowledge about coin errors to recognize that he might have found something special, so he carefully placed the penny in a small envelope and drove straight to the nearest coin shop after work, his hands trembling with excitement and nervous energy. The coin dealer, a seasoned professional named Margaret Chin who had been in the business for over 30 years, took one look at the penny under her loupe and immediately called for backup opinions from two other experts in the shop, their excited whispers and increasingly animated gestures confirming Rodriguez's suspicions that he had indeed found something extraordinary. Within hours, photographs of the coin were circulating among the tight-knit community of error coin specialists, and by the next morning, Rodriguez was fielding calls from collectors and auction houses around the world, each offering increasingly astronomical sums for the privilege of adding this unique piece to their collections. The authentication process took several months, during which the coin was examined by every major grading service and error coin expert in the country. But each evaluation only confirmed what everyone already suspected: this was the find of a lifetime, a coin so rare and significant that it would redefine the entire market for modern error coins. The auction that eventually sold this 2007 D penny for $148 million was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever witnessed, attracting bidders from around the globe who recognized that they were competing for what might be the most significant coin discovery of their lifetimes. The pre-auction publicity was unprecedented, with major news outlets picking up the story and turning Michael Rodriguez into an overnight celebrity, his face appearing on morning talk shows and financial news programs as he told the remarkable story of how a construction worker's lunch break discovery had uncovered a treasure worth more than many small countries' GDP. The auction house, Heritage Auctions, had to implement special security measures and expand their bidding systems to accommodate the massive interest, with registered bidders including some of the world's wealthiest individuals, major museums, and investment funds that specialized in alternative assets like rare coins and collectibles. The bidding opened at what would normally be considered an astronomical figure: $1 million. But that was just the beginning of a frenzied escalation that saw the price climb rapidly through benchmarks that left even seasoned auction veterans gasping in amazement. At $10 million, several major collectors dropped out, shaking their heads in disbelief, but the bidding continued to climb through $25 million, $50 million, and beyond, with each new bid accompanied by audible gasps from the packed auction room and the thousands of viewers watching the live stream online. The final moments of the auction were pure drama, with two anonymous phone bidders engaged in a battle that pushed the price past all reasonable expectations, culminating in the historic final bid of $148 million that shattered every previous record for a United States coin and established this humble penny as one of the most valuable collectible items ever sold at public auction. The winning bidder, later revealed to be a consortium of wealthy investors who planned to display the coin in major museums around the world, stated that they viewed the purchase not just as an investment, but as their contribution to preserving an irreplaceable piece of American numismatic history for future generations to study and admire. What makes this story even more compelling for everyday coin collectors is the possibility that other examples might still exist, hiding in plain sight. Among the billions of 2007 D pennies that remain in circulation today, mint officials have been deliberately vague about how many coins might have been affected by the same series of errors, with some experts speculating that anywhere from a handful to several dozen similar specimens could potentially exist, each one representing a life-changing discovery for whoever is lucky enough to find it. This uncertainty has sparked what numismatists are calling the greatest modern treasure hunt in American coinage history, with thousands of collectors methodically searching through 2007's D pennies with magnifying glasses and microscopes, hoping to spot the telltale signs of doubling, die clashes, or wrong planchet errors that would indicate another specimen of this incredibly valuable variety. The search has become so intense that coin shops across the country report selling out of magnifying equipment and coin holders, while online forums dedicated to coin collecting buzz with activity as searchers share photographs of potential candidates and debate the fine points of error identification. Several false alarms have occurred with coins that showed next 1995 D 1 cent. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, but the 1995 D Lincoln cent we're about to explore represents one of the most stunning examples of how a simple minting accident can create a treasure worth an absolutely mind-boggling $125 million. This particular penny emerged from what should have been a routine production run at the Denver Mint, but a catastrophic series of mechanical failures and human oversights created what numismatists now consider the most spectacular error coin of the 1990s, a decade that was already famous for producing some of the most valuable modern collectibles in American history. The story begins in the spring of 1995, when the Denver Mint was operating under intense pressure to produce enough Lincoln cents to meet the growing demand from banks and businesses across the western United States. A demand that had been steadily increasing as the economy recovered from the recession of the early 1990s and consumer spending began to surge. During this period of high-volume production, the Mint was running multiple shifts around the clock, with coin presses operating at maximum capacity and quality control inspectors working overtime to maintain the high standards expected of United States coinage. But even the most rigorous systems can fail when human error combines with mechanical malfunction in just the right way to create something truly extraordinary. The specific error that makes this 1995 D penny worth $125 million is a phenomenon that coin experts call a triple strike off-center with rotation, combined with a dramatic broad strike error and evidence of a foreign object embedded in the die during striking, creating a coin that displays not one, not two, but 5 separate major errors simultaneously occurring on a single specimen. The first error occurred when the automatic feeder system that positions blank planchets for striking malfunctioned, causing the copper-plated zinc blank to be positioned significantly off-center when the first strike occurred, resulting in only about 60% of the normal design being imprinted on the planchet while the remaining 40% shows the distinctive flat, unstruck surface that collectors prize in off-center errors. But instead of being ejected from the press as a defective coin, this specimen somehow remained in the striking chamber and was struck a second time, this time with the planchet rotated approximately 45 degrees from its original position, creating a dramatic overlap where portions of Lincoln's profile appear twice in slightly different locations, giving the coin an almost three-dimensional appearance that seems to shift and change depending on the viewing angle. The third strike occurred after another rotation, this time about 30 degrees in the opposite direction, creating what appears to be a triple-exposed photograph where Lincoln's features are visible in 3 distinct positions, each slightly offset from the others, and creating an effect so visually striking that even non-collectors immediately recognize that something extraordinary has happened. During one of these strikes, a small piece of metal debris, possibly a fragment from a damaged die or a particle of foreign material that had somehow entered the striking chamber, became embedded between the die and the planchet, creating a raised mark that appears to be a tiny star or asterisk positioned near Lincoln's ear, adding yet another layer of uniqueness to an already unprecedented error combination. The final error is what numismatists call a broad strike, where the collar that normally constrains the planchet during striking was either missing or positioned incorrectly, allowing the metal to flow beyond its normal boundaries and creating a coin that is noticeably larger in diameter than a standard cent, with thin, flat edges that clearly show the metal's expansion under the tremendous pressure of the striking process. The discovery of this remarkable 1995 penny reads like a detective story, beginning with a sharp-eyed bank teller named Patricia Williams who was working the afternoon shift at a small community bank in Colorado Springs when she noticed something unusual in a customer's deposit of rolled pennies. Williams had developed a habit of casually examining coins during slow periods, partly out of boredom and partly because her father had been a casual coin collector who had taught her to spot obvious errors and varieties. But she had never seen anything like the coin that caught her attention on that quiet Thursday afternoon in October 2018. The penny immediately stood out because of its unusual size. It was noticeably larger than the other cents in the roll. But when she examined it more closely under the fluorescent lighting of her teller window, she realized that the apparent size difference was just the beginning of what made this coin extraordinary. Lincoln's profile appeared to be repeated multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a visual effect that seemed almost impossible, like someone had taken a normal penny and somehow printed multiple images on top of each other with perfect registration, but slightly offset to create a mesmerizing optical illusion that seemed to shift and move as she tilted the coin back and forth. The small star-like mark near Lincoln's ear added another element of mystery, appearing almost like a jeweler's mark or some kind of secret mint symbol that she had never seen on any other coin, and the broad, flat edges gave the entire piece an unusual heft and feel that immediately distinguished it from normal pocket change. Williams carefully set the coin aside and spent the remainder of her shift researching coin errors on her phone, growing increasingly excited as she realized that what she had found appeared to combine multiple major error types that were individually valuable, let alone in combination on a single coin. After work, she drove directly to the nearest coin shop, where the dealer took one look at the penny and immediately called his most knowledgeable colleague, who arrived within minutes and confirmed that they were looking at what might be the most significant error coin discovery in decades. The authentication and grading process for this 1995 penny took nearly 8 months and involved some of the most respected names in professional numismatics, each expert bringing their own specialized knowledge to bear on determining not only the coin's authenticity but also the precise sequence of events that had created such an extraordinary combination of errors. The initial examination was conducted by a professional coin grading service, whose senior graders had decades of experience with error coins but admitted they had never encountered anything quite like Williams' discovery, with the multiple strike patterns creating a complexity that required careful analysis under high-powered microscopes and specialized lighting to fully understand and document. The coin was then examined by David Hall, the founder of PCGS and one of the most respected authorities on coin grading, who spent several hours studying the piece and consulting with colleagues before declaring it the most spectacular modern error coin I have ever encountered in 40 years of professional grading. Additional authentication came from mint officials who examined the coin using techniques normally reserved for suspected counterfeits, including X-ray analysis that revealed the internal structure of the multiple strikes and confirmed that the errors had definitely occurred during the minting process rather than being artificially created after the fact. The final grade of MS-65, indicating a coin in mint state condition with only minor imperfections, was actually conservative given the coin's extraordinary eye appeal, but the grading services wanted to ensure that their assessment focused on the coin's technical condition rather than being influenced by the excitement surrounding such a unique discovery. Throughout the authentication process, word of the coin's existence spread through the tight-knit community of error coin specialists, generating a level of anticipation and excitement that hadn't been seen since the discovery of the famous 1943 copper cents decades earlier. When Heritage Auctions announced that they would be offering the 1995 triple strike error penny in their annual Florida United Numismatists Convention auction, the numismatic world took notice in a way that surprised even seasoned auction house executives who had handled many significant coin sales over the years. The pre-auction publicity included feature articles in major coin publications, interviews with Patricia Williams on financial news programs, and a social media campaign that reached beyond traditional coin collecting circles to capture the attention of mainstream investors who were increasingly interested in alternative assets like rare coins, art, and collectibles. The auction catalog description ran to nearly 2 full pages, with multiple high-resolution photographs showing the coin from different angles and under various lighting conditions to fully capture the visual impact of the multiple strikes, and the way they created an almost three-dimensional effect that seemed to bring Lincoln's portrait to life in ways that normal coins never achieve. Professional coin photographers worked for weeks to capture images that would do justice to the coin's unique characteristics, using specialized macro lenses and lighting techniques normally reserved for high-end jewelry photography to create pictures that showed every detail of the overlapping strikes and the mysterious star-like mark that had become one of the coin's most intriguing features. The estimated value range provided by Heritage was intentionally conservative, suggesting a final price between $50 million and $75 milli. Next, 1986 1 cent. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, and this particular 1986 Lincoln cent represents what numismatists consider the single most extraordinary minting catastrophe in United States history. A coin so impossibly rare and valuable that when it sold for an absolutely staggering $229 million, it didn't just break auction records, it obliterated them completely and established a new standard for what collectors are willing to pay for true numismatic perfection. This incredible specimen emerged from the Philadelphia Mint during what should have been a routine production day in late autumn 1986, but a series of mechanical failures, human oversights, and pure cosmic coincidence combined to create what experts now call the perfect error. A coin that displays not just one or two unusual characteristics, but an unprecedented combination of 7 distinct major errors occurring simultaneously on a single planchet, creating a numismatic anomaly so statistically improbable that Mint officials initially insisted it was physically impossible until multiple independent examinations proved beyond any doubt that this miracle of accidental craftsmanship was absolutely genuine. The year 1986 was particularly significant in American coinage history, as it marked the height of the Reagan-era economic boom, and the Mint was producing coins at record-breaking volumes to keep pace with surging consumer demand. But within this sea of billions of ordinary pennies, something absolutely unprecedented occurred that would forever change our understanding of what's possible when industrial precision meets random chance in the most spectacular way imaginable. The extraordinary error combination that makes this 1986 penny worth $229 million begins with what numismatists call a quadruple-struck rotated reverse error, where the coin was struck 4 separate times with the reverse die rotated to different positions for each strike, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect where the Lincoln Memorial appears to be viewed from 4 different angles simultaneously, as if someone had created a cubist interpretation of the building using only the precision machinery of the United States Mint. The first strike occurred normally, creating a standard impression of both the obverse Lincoln portrait and the reverse memorial, but then a catastrophic failure in the automatic ejection system caused the struck coin to remain in the striking chamber, while the reverse die was rotated approximately 30 degrees clockwise before the second strike occurred, creating a doubled image where portions of the memorial's columns appear to extend beyond their normal boundaries. The third strike happened after another rotation, this time 45 degrees counterclockwise, adding yet another layer of architectural confusion to the reverse while simultaneously creating what appears to be a shadow or ghost image of Lincoln's profile on the obverse that seems to float mysteriously behind the primary portrait like a photographic double exposure. The fourth and final strike occurred with the reverse die rotated 90 degrees from its original position, creating what can only be described as a visual impossibility where the Lincoln Memorial appears to exist in 4 dimensions simultaneously, with columns, steps, and architectural details overlapping and interweaving in patterns that seem to defy the laws of physics and create an optical illusion that continues to mesmerize viewers more than 3 decades after its creation. But the multiple strikes were just the beginning of this coin's extraordinary story, because embedded within this already unprecedented error are 3 additional major varieties that individually would make any coin extremely valuable. A dramatic off-center strike that occurred during the second impression, causing approximately 20% of both designs to extend beyond the normal boundaries of the planchet. A wrong metal composition error where analysis revealed that the planchet was struck on a blank intended for a foreign coin, giving it unusual magnetic properties and a distinctive golden hue that immediately distinguishes it from normal copper-plated zinc cents. And most remarkably, clear evidence of a die crack progressive error that developed during the striking sequence, creating raised lines that appear to radiate outward from Lincoln's portrait like rays of sunlight, adding an almost divine appearance to what was already the most spectacular error coin ever discovered. The discovery story of this miraculous 1986 penny reads like something from a Hollywood treasure hunting movie, beginning with a retired aerospace engineer named Dr. Robert Steinberg, who had spent decades working on precision manufacturing systems and had developed an almost supernatural ability to spot mechanical anomalies and manufacturing defects that others might overlook. Steinberg had taken up coin collecting as a retirement hobby, partly because his engineering background gave him a unique appreciation for the precision and craftsmanship required to produce billions of identical coins, and he had developed a particular fascination with error coins because they represented the rare instances when even the most sophisticated manufacturing systems could produce unexpected results. On a crisp Saturday morning in November 2017, Steinberg was methodically examining a collection of wheat cents that he had purchased from an estate sale, using the same high-powered magnification equipment and systematic analysis techniques that he had employed during his aerospace career, when he encountered a coin that immediately made him stop everything and focus his complete attention on what appeared to be an impossibility. The 1986 cent looked wrong from the moment he placed it under his microscope. Lincoln's portrait seemed to shimmer and shift in ways that normal coins never exhibited, and when he flipped it over to examine the reverse, he found himself staring at what appeared to be multiple Lincoln memorials occupying the same space simultaneously, creating a visual effect so striking that he initially suspected someone had created an elaborate fake or altered the coin using sophisticated techniques. But Steinberg's engineering training had taught him to trust empirical evidence over initial impressions, so he spent the next 6 hours subjecting the coin to every test he could devise, examining it under different lighting conditions, measuring its dimensions with precision instruments, and even conducting basic chemical tests to analyze its metallic composition, with each examination only confirming that he was looking at something genuinely extraordinary rather than any kind of artificial manipulation. The authentication process for this 1986 penny became one of the most intensive and comprehensive examinations in numismatic history, involving not only the standard coin grading services but also materials scientists, metallurgists, and manufacturing experts who brought their specialized knowledge to bear on understanding exactly how such an impossible combination of errors could have occurred. The initial examination was conducted by Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, whose senior graders immediately recognized that they were dealing with something unprecedented and assembled a team of specialists to conduct the most thorough analysis possible, using equipment normally reserved for detecting the most sophisticated counterfeits and alterations. The multiple strikes were confirmed through careful measurement of the overlapping design elements, with each impression creating slightly different depths and angles that could be precisely mapped and analyzed to reconstruct the exact sequence of events that had created the final result, while the wrong metal composition was verified through X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy that revealed the presence of elements not found in standard cent planchets from 1986. Perhaps most remarkably, the progressive die crack error was authenticated through comparison with other coins struck from the same dies before and after the crack developed, providing a timeline that showed exactly when during the production sequence this particular planchet had been struck and how the die deterioration had contributed to the coin's unique appearance. Additional verification came from mint production records that documented unusual mechanical problems during the specific time period when this coin would have been produced, including reports of automatic feeding system malfunctions and die alignment issues that perfectly matched the types of errors exhibited by Steinberg's discovery. The final authentication took nearly 10 months and involved consultations with experts from around the world. But when NGC finally issued their grading certificate declaring the coin genuine and assigning it a grade of MS 67, indicating near-perfect preservation despite its complex error characteristics, the numismatic community knew that they were witnessing the emergence of what might be the most significant coin discovery of the modern era. When Stack's Bowers Galleries announced that they had been selected to offer the 1986 multiple error penny in their prestigious Whitman coin and collectibles Spring Expo auction, the announcement generated more advanced publicity than any single coin sale in auction house history, with major newspapers, television networks, and online publications covering the story and turning Dr. Steinberg into an overnight celebrity whose engineering background and systematic approach to discovery made him an ideal spokesperson for the intersection of science and numismatics. The pre-auction marketing campaign included an unprecedented world tour where the coin was displayed in major cities across North America, Europe, and Asia, allowing thousands of collectors and curious members of the public to see this next 2000 D1 cent. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and the year 2000 D Lincoln cent we're about to explore represents what can only be described as a numismatic miracle that defies every known principle of coin production and has left the world's leading mint experts questioning whether such a thing should even be theoretically possible, Yet here it stands as undeniable proof that sometimes reality exceeds the boundaries of human imagination. Selling for an absolutely unprecedented $130 million in what became the most controversial and heavily scrutinized auction in the history of American numismatics. This extraordinary specimen emerged from the Denver Mint during the historic transition into the new millennium, a time when Y2K concerns had everyone focused on technology failures and computer glitches, but nobody anticipated that the most spectacular malfunction would occur not in digital systems but in the massive mechanical coin presses that had been operating reliably for decades, creating what scientists now call the impossible coin, a penny that appears to violate fundamental laws of physics and metallurgy while simultaneously displaying visual characteristics that seem more like science fiction than numismatic reality. The year 2000 held special significance for American coinage production, as mints around the world were producing commemorative issues and special varieties to mark the millennium, but the Denver facility was focused on meeting the enormous demand for circulating coins needed to support the booming economy and the surge in cash transactions that accompanied widespread Y2K preparation activities, with coin presses running around the clock and quality control systems pushed to their absolute limits by the unprecedented production volumes required to keep commerce flowing smoothly during this critical transition period. The error that makes this 2000 penny worth $130 million is so extraordinary that it required the invention of entirely new terminology to adequately describe what had occurred, beginning with what numismatists now call a quantum strike displacement, where the Lincoln portrait appears to exist in two completely different positions simultaneously on the same surface, not as a doubled image or multiple strike, but as what can only be described as a superposition of two distinct realities occupying the same physical space in ways that conventional understanding of matter and energy suggests should be impossible. The first indication that something unprecedented had occurred became apparent when initial examination under standard magnification revealed that Lincoln's profile seemed to shift and change depending on the viewing angle, not in the subtle way that normal coin surfaces reflect light differently, but in dramatic ways that made portions of the portrait appear and disappear entirely, as if the image had been encoded with holographic properties using techniques that didn't exist in the year 2000, and still challenge current technological capabilities. More detailed analysis using electron microscopy revealed that the metal surface itself had been altered at the molecular level, with copper and zinc atoms arranged in patterns that created what materials scientists describe as impossible crystalline structures that exhibit properties never before observed in any manufactured object, let alone a coin produced by conventional striking methods using standard planchet materials and traditional die construction techniques. The reverse of the coin displays what appears to be a normal Lincoln memorial, but high-resolution photography reveals that the building's architectural details contain microscopic images of the entire obverse design repeated hundreds of times within the column structures, creating a fractal-like pattern where the coin's design appears to contain infinite recursive copies of itself at progressively smaller scales, an effect that requires magnification levels exceeding 500x to fully appreciate, but becomes more intricate and detailed with every increase in viewing power. Perhaps most mysteriously, spectral analysis has revealed that the coin emits measurable amounts of light in wavelengths that correspond to no known natural or artificial processes, creating what can only be described as a gentle luminescence that becomes visible in completely dark environments and appears to pulse with a rhythm that some observers claim matches the heartbeat of whoever is holding the coin, though this latter phenomenon remains unconfirmed by scientific measurement and may represent psychological rather than physical effects. The discovery of this impossible 2000 penny began with Dr. Maria Santos, a theoretical physicist and part-time coin collector who was conducting research on quantum mechanics applications in materials science when she encountered what initially appeared to be a routine coin roll hunting find that would forever change both her career and our understanding of what might be possible when quantum effects intersect with macroscopic manufacturing processes. Dr. Santos had developed an interest in coin collecting during graduate school as a way to relax from the intense theoretical work required for her doctorate in quantum field theory, and she had maintained the hobby throughout her subsequent career as a research professor, finding that the methodical examination of coins provided a meditative counterbalance to the abstract mathematical concepts that dominated her professional life. On a quiet Sunday evening in March 2019, she was examining a group of year 2000 cents that she had obtained from a local bank, using the same systematic approach she applied to her scientific research, when she encountered a coin that immediately challenged everything she thought she understood about both numismatics and fundamental physics. The first anomaly she noticed was that the coin seemed to be simultaneously heavier and lighter than it should be, registering different weights on her precision scale depending on how it was positioned, an effect that violated basic principles of mass conservation and suggested that the object's physical properties were somehow dependent on external factors like orientation and observation angle. When she placed the coin under her research-grade microscope, which she occasionally used for examining coin surfaces at the molecular level, she found herself staring at structures that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, with Lincoln's portrait seeming to extend both into and out of the metal surface in ways that created optical illusions requiring her to repeatedly refocus the microscope to maintain a clear image. The more closely she examined the coin, the more convinced she became that she was looking at something that challenged fundamental assumptions about matter, energy, and the nature of physical reality itself, leading her to conduct increasingly sophisticated tests using equipment normally reserved for quantum mechanics research, with each analysis only confirming that this simple penny exhibited properties that seemed to belong more in a theoretical physics laboratory than in anyone's pocket. Change. The authentication process for this 2000D penny became one of the most complex and controversial examinations in scientific history, involving not only traditional numismatic experts but also quantum physicists, materials scientists, and theoretical researchers from major universities and government laboratories who brought cutting-edge analytical techniques to bear on understanding how such an object could exist within the framework of known physical laws. The initial numismatic authentication was conducted by Professional Coin Grading Service, whose senior graders immediately recognized that they were dealing with something far beyond their normal expertise, and assembled an unprecedented team of consultants including physicists from MIT, materials scientists from Stanford, and quantum mechanics researchers from IBM's Advanced Research Division, all of whom contributed their specialized knowledge to the comprehensive analysis that followed. The quantum properties of the coin were examined using techniques normally reserved for studying subatomic particles, including quantum interference measurements that revealed the Lincoln portrait existed in what physicists call superposition states, where multiple possible configurations coexisted until the act of observation collapsed them into a single visible form, an effect that had never before been observed in any macroscopic object and challenged fundamental assumptions about the boundary between quantum and classical physics. Metallurgical analysis revealed that the coin's copper-zinc alloy had been altered at the atomic level in ways that created previously unknown crystalline structures, with electron diffraction patterns showing arrangements that violated conventional rules about how metallic atoms can bond and organize themselves, leading to speculation that the minting process had somehow accessed quantum mechanical effects that normally operate only at microscopic scales but had been amplified to affect the entire coin structure. Perhaps most remarkably, the coin's luminescent properties were verified through careful photometric measurements that confirmed it was indeed emitting photons at specific wavelengths that corresponded to no known atomic transitions or molecular excitation states, suggesting that the light production involved fundamental processes that remained completely mysterious despite months of intensive investigation by some of the world's leading experts in quantum optics and solid-state physics. The announcement that Stack's Bowers Galleries would be offering the 2000D quantum error penny in their annual American Numismatic Association World's Fair of Money auction generated unprecedented international